Ancient Egypt can only be described as a twilight zone where the mind and soul become lost in something that feels part science fiction and part fairy tale, filled with impossible mysteries and divine wonders. It's one of the most intensely studied civilizations in history, but still, even after 2 centuries, many of its discoveries remain difficult to place within the world we thought the Egyptians lived in. From manuscripts that speak of wars between humans and divine beings to objects that look more like pieces of forgotten technology than ritual relics. These are the 15 ancient Egyptian artifacts that shouldn't exist, according to what the archaeological record tells us. Number 15. The ancient Egyptian airplane. According to modern history, airplanes belong to the 20th century. But around 200 BC, an Egyptian craftsman shaped a small bird from sycamore wood and left behind something that looks far less like a toy than it should. The object came from the tomb of Pa-di-Emen at Saqqara and was displayed at the Cairo Museum in 1898, where Ludwig Borchardt catalogued it as PA 6347. For the next 72 years, no one asked whether this thing could fly. Then, in 1969, Egyptian physician and model aircraft enthusiast Dr. Khalil Massia examined it and immediately noticed the problem. Real birds use broad, horizontal tail feathers. This artifact has a single upright fin, the same basic feature aircraft use to control yaw. Its body narrows like a fuselage, the nose carries weight forward, and the wings dip slightly from root to tip for stability. Across its small frame, which was about 5.6 inches long, 7.2 inches wide, and weighed 1.4 ounces, almost every detail serves flight rather than decoration. Even scale models tested in 1972 glided under control. So why would an Egyptian craftsman shape a bird around fixed-wing aerodynamics? What was he copying? And if this was only a model, what did the full-sized version look like? Number 14. The Book of the Heavenly Cow. Every civilization has a story about why the world is no longer perfect. The ancient Egyptians had one too, except theirs survived inside an ancient text known as the Book of the Heavenly Cow. Its copies were found in the tombs of Tut, Seti I, Ramesses II, Ramesses III, and even V6. It is one of the most important religious writings ever preserved from ancient Egypt. The story begins after Ra has ruled both the gods and mankind for many ages. As he grows old, humanity turns against its own creator and secretly plots to overthrow him. Rather than answering with instant destruction, Ra summons the elder gods into council and asks what should be done. Only then does he send his eye, the goddess Hathor, to punish the rebellion. The slaughter becomes so overwhelming that Ra regrets his own decision. To stop Hathor, now transformed into the bloodthirsty Sekhmet, he orders 7,000 jars of beer to be mixed with red ochre until it looks like blood. She drinks it, falls asleep, and awakens peaceful once again. Afterward, Ra leaves the earth on the back of the celestial cow Nut, leaving humanity to preserve Maat without its creator walking among them. Long before stories like Atrahasis or Noah's flood, Egypt was already telling a strangely similar tale through one of its oldest surviving texts. Number 13. Tut's dagger, a weapon from the Heavens King Tutankhamun, aka Boy King, is one of the most famous names from ancient Egypt. But what actually made him famous wasn't his time as pharaoh. He took the throne at around 9 years old, died before reaching 19, and ruled for only a few short years. His real story began more than 3,000 years later when his tomb was opened in 1922, revealing thousands of untouched treasures. Among all the gold, jewelry, and royal ornaments was one object that seemed completely out of place: an iron dagger. Back then, iron was more valuable than gold, making the weapon difficult to explain. That mystery lasted until 2016, when scientists examined the blade with X-ray fluorescence spectrometry. The results showed roughly 11% nickel, together with cobalt levels matching meteoritic iron, not iron mined from Earth. Experts compared the blade with 20 meteorites discovered across Egypt and found its closest match to the Karga meteorite near Marsa Matruh. Imagine carrying a weapon forged from a stone that once fell from space. That's exactly what King Tutankhamun may have done over 3,300 years ago. Number 12. The Thule Papyrus. Long before paper, books, or even the alphabet as we know it, Egypt trusted papyrus with its memory. Kings celebrated victories on it, priests copied sacred teachings onto it, and royal scribes filled it with events they believed deserved to outlive them. That is what gives the story of the Thule Papyrus so much weight. According to the surviving translation, sometime around 1480 BC, during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, court record keepers described glowing circles crossing the Egyptian sky. They wrote that the objects shone more brightly than the sun, traveled together rather than alone, lingered for several days, and eventually rose away from the earth. The manuscript takes its modern name from Alberto Thule, the former Vatican Museum director who reportedly copied its contents after seeing a fragment in a Cairo antiquities shop in 1933. The fragment itself later vanished from public view. The Vatican stated it never possessed the papyrus, and scholars still disagree over where the text truly came from. Even with those unanswered questions, the account refuses to fade. So, was it actually real, or something even worse? Number 11. The Dendera Light. Around 50 BC. Inside one of the lower crypts of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, craftsmen carved a scene unlike anything else in Egyptian art. A lotus supports a large teardrop-shaped form. Inside it was a serpent that stretched from one end to the other. The whole design stands on a jed pillar, while a cable-like line appears to connect it with the next relief. In 1966, Austrian electrical engineer Walter Garn compared the carving to a Crookes tube, the vacuum tube invented by William Crookes in 1875. He believed the serpent matched the glowing discharge inside the tube. The jed resembled an insulator, and the connecting line looked very much like a cable. Later, Reinhard Habeck built replicas using Baghdad battery reproductions and reported a faint glow. Egyptologists still explain the relief as religious symbolism, and that may well be true. But one question remains. If this is only symbolic, why does this exact combination appear nowhere else across nearly 300 years of Egyptian art? And if it wasn't meant to represent a source of light, then what exactly was the craftsman trying to show? Number 10. The Westcar Papyrus. While the Thule Papyrus continues to divide opinion, the Westcar Papyrus raises questions of a very different kind because no one disputes that it is genuine. Preserved today in Berlin as Papyrus 3033 and usually dated to around 1600 BC, it tells the story of the magician Djedi, who appears before Pharaoh Khufu with knowledge that leaves the royal court speechless. Rather than performing magic for entertainment, Djedi speaks about something far more disturbing: the exact number and position of the secret chambers of Thoth, places no ordinary person was supposed to know existed. The text presents the conversation almost like routine business instead of a miracle or divine vision. Someone possesses forbidden knowledge, and everyone present seems to accept that someone must have passed it on. That detail fits surprisingly well with what historians know about Egypt's Perankh, or houses of life, where priests preserved restricted writings far from public eyes. The Westcar Papyrus doesn't simply tell a story, it quietly suggests that some knowledge was never meant to leave those temple libraries. Number 9. The Schist Disc, this odd-looking stone disc, has been raising the same question ever since it was found in 1936. If the ancient Egyptians made it around 3000 BC, then where did the idea come from? Because nothing else from their world looks quite like it. The object was found inside the tomb of Prince Sabu at Saqqara by British Egyptologist Walter Bryan Emery, surrounded by ordinary burial items such as flint knives, stone vessels, arrows, and a handful of copper tools. Then there was this disc. Cut from fragile schist, it spans about 24 inches, is barely 1 centimeter thick, and carries 3 curved blades flowing toward a raised central hub. Working with a stone that naturally splits so easily into such a balanced design remains difficult to explain. The bigger puzzle is what followed. Nearly a century of excavation has produced no prototype, no unfinished version, and no second example. Some researchers think it copied a much older metal object now lost. Others call it an incense holder, although no evidence proves that idea. If neither explanation is right, then what exactly was Prince Sabu buried with more than 5,000 years ago? Number 8. The mysterious Egyptian tablet before the reigns of Seti, Ramesses, or Tutankhamun. Egyptian tradition spoke of a time when the land itself was ruled by gods and demigods. Whether those stories are history or mythology is another question entirely. Even so, one little-known artifact has kept that discussion alive. Now displayed in the Leiden Museum of Antiquities, this alabaster object measures roughly 49 centimeters across, stands about 13 centimeters high, and weighs nearly 75 kilograms. Although the museum acquired it in 1828, no one knows which tomb, temple, or ancient city it originally came from. Its authenticity has been accepted, but its purpose remains open to debate. The surface is covered with circular openings and carefully carved patterns that have resisted every confident explanation. One interpretation links it to libation rituals performed for high-ranking Egyptians before entering the afterlife. Others believe it copies a much older object made from different materials now lost forever. To many modern eyes, it resembles the control panel of a machine rather than a ceremonial vessel. So, was it a coincidence or imagination? Number 7. The mummy wrapped in a foreign book now. This has to be one of the most baffling artifacts ever connected to ancient Egypt. In 1848, a Croatian official named Mihajlo Bari purchased an Egyptian mummy while visiting Alexandria. For years, it remained in his home as little more than an unusual display piece. But everything changed when people noticed that the linen wrapped around the body was covered with writing. As scholars carefully removed the bandages, they expected Egyptian hieroglyphs. Instead, they discovered the longest surviving text written in the Etruscan language, the language of the ancient civilization that once flourished in what is now Italy. The text appears to record ritual dates, religious ceremonies, and the names of Etruscan gods. The woman inside is believed to have been an Egyptian named Nessie Hensu, but no one has ever explained how an Egyptian mummy ended up wrapped inside an Etruscan book. Even today, that story remains unfinished. Number 6. The Narmer Palette, the history of ancient Egypt, isn't nearly as simple as most history books make it sound. Ask one Egyptologist who united Egypt, and you'll hear Narmer. Ask another, and the answer might be Menes, Hor-Aha, or even King Scorpion. Right at the center of that debate stands one stone artifact, the Narmer Palette. Carved around 3200–3000 BC from a single piece of dark green siltstone, the 63-centimeter ceremonial palette was uncovered at the Temple of Horus in Hierakonpolis during excavations in 1897–1898 by James Quibble and Frederick Green. One side shows Narmer wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt, striking an enemy while Horus stands above papyrus plants holding a captive from the north. Turn it over, and the king now wears the red crown of Lower Egypt, passing rows of 10 beheaded prisoners. Between the scenes appear two long-necked creatures held together, often understood as the union of Upper and Lower Egypt. More than a victory monument, the palette preserves some of Egypt's earliest hieroglyphs and the first visual record of a united kingdom. The only question is, who truly united it? Number 5. The Amduat. For the ancient Egyptians, death was never the end of a person's story. It was another journey altogether. One they believed had to be understood long before it was ever experienced. That belief gave rise to one of the most closely guarded texts in their civilization, the Amduat. Dating to Egypt's 18th dynasty, it was never intended for ordinary people. Its pages describe the 12 stages of the underworld through which a pharaoh traveled after death. But one section has continued to puzzle readers for generations. Instead of introducing familiar gods such as Osiris, Horus, or Ra, the text suddenly refers to beings described as those who were here before the first sunrise. They are presented as a separate group that existed before the world took the form described in Egyptian creation traditions. Egyptologists have never reached a single explanation for who these figures were or why they appear without any real introduction. The Amduat simply speaks of them as though every royal reader already knew truly who they were. Now let's move to number 4. The diorite bowls. How did the ancient Egyptians shape some of the hardest stones on Earth thousands of years before steel tools ever existed? That's the question raised by a collection of diorite, granodiorite, anorthosite, and gabbro bowls that continue to challenge modern assumptions about early stoneworking. Many of these vessels date to the predynastic period and the 1st to 4th dynasties, carved from rock quarried at places such as Aswan and Gebel El Asser. Unlike softer limestone or alabaster, these stones rank among the toughest materials available to ancient craftsmen. But the bowls display razor-sharp rims, perfectly balanced curves, polished interiors, and walls so thin that even skilled stoneworkers admire the precision. The mystery goes beyond their appearance. No one has found the missing stages leading to this level of workmanship. There are no prototypes showing centuries of gradual improvement. The finest examples seem to appear already mastered. Archaeologists credit patience, stone hammers, abrasives, and craftsmanship. And those explanations may well be correct. But how did a civilization working with copper tools achieve this absolutely smooth finish? Did they know something we don't? Number 3. The Roman pharaoh. Stela. Romans and Egyptians belong to two completely different worlds. One built an empire across Europe, while the other had already ruled the Nile for thousands of years. That's why a newly studied stone monument from Karnak has left archaeologists with an image few people would expect to see. During restoration work in 2026, a joint French-Egyptian team found a sandstone stela showing the Roman Emperor Tiberius, who ruled from 14 to 37 C, standing beside the Egyptian gods Amun, Khonsu, and Mut. He isn't dressed as a Roman ruler, but he wears the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, appearing like a traditional pharaoh. Hieroglyphic inscriptions below the scene describe the restoration of an enclosure wall dedicated to Amun and present Tiberius as the king responsible for maintaining Ma'at, the sacred balance of the universe. History tells us Roman emperors rarely visited Egypt after the fall of Cleopatra, governing through appointed prefects instead. But Egyptian temples continued portraying them as pharaohs because that was the only form their gods were meant to recognize. Was it political propaganda, some sort of religious tradition, or something that blurred the line between the two? Number 2. The alabaster lotus lamps. Well, we've looked at stone, metal, and even objects that seem to borrow ideas far ahead of their time. This next artifact proves that beauty alone can sometimes leave behind just as many questions. Among the treasures from Tut's tomb stood a finely carved triple lotus lamp shaped from a single block of translucent alabaster. A large lotus blossom rises from the center, while two unopened buds curve gracefully from each side, giving the whole piece the appearance of a flower floating across still water. Traces of oil preserved inside the cups show it was more than decoration, it once carried light. The lotus symbolized rebirth, renewal, and the rising sun, making it a fitting object for a young pharaoh's journey into the next world. But the craftsmanship is what draws attention. Every stem, leaf, and cup flows from one solid piece of stone without joints or separate parts. Even today, working with alabaster demands patience and control. Number 1. The Papyrus of Ani. The Papyrus of Ani was written in elegant cursive hieroglyphs during Egypt's 19th dynasty, sometime between 1275 and 1250 BC, for a royal scribe named Ani. But it's not the beautifully painted illustrations or the careful handwriting that has kept historians returning to this scroll. It's what the manuscript hints at and never explains. This 78-foot-long scroll is among the finest surviving copies of the Book of the Dead, a collection of sacred spells meant to guide the dead safely through the next life. After it was recovered from Ani's tomb at Thebes, Sir E.A. Wallace Budge acquired it for the British Museum in 1888. To make the journey to England possible, this scroll was divided into 37 separate sheets, the form in which it is still preserved today. Its most curious passage appears in chapter 17, where the creator god Adam is asked, "Who are you?" The text gives an answer, but a note written later by another scribe quietly remarks that it is not the complete answer. Nothing else is added. There is no missing explanation or forgotten chapter. Just one brief sentence suggesting that somewhere another version once existed. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.